Hey, welcome to the Based Reader podcast. Is that name cool with you? We've been talking about the name.
If we can't do Lion Publishing podcast, then we can't do the Based Reader podcast.
Well, you had another idea.
Yeah, how about we stick with Let Us Hear Your Roar?
Yeah, that one is definitely not happening.
And then we'll go from there.
No, sorry. Today, we're going to talk about whether or not the vision of Lion Publishing to publish beautifully storytelling focused books, does it cause harm to the communities that we may not feature in our books the same way as a traditional publisher in the space would do? So let's get into it. Okay. I have something I want to talk about that occurred today when I was at a drive-thru. And it is really relevant to the publishing of books, especially me telling people what we're doing with Lion. And so I wanted to hear your thoughts. Okay. Here's the setup. I go into the drive-thru at 7 Brew for anyone who cares. That's around here where I tend to go. Okay.
I feel like most people will not even know what that is.
It's a coffee place that makes low quality coffee and things that I will actually drink that are fruity.
Good service.
Yes, very good service. We love them. Okay, so I'm in the drive-thru. I get up to the front, and the guy who takes my order is a person who is exuding a personality intentionally. And I thought, oh, this is probably a gay guy. Just the way he spoke, his entire demeanor, it was just the vibe he was putting off, which is fine. He asked me how I was, and I said, I'm great. And he asked what I had going on today. And I said, oh, I'm recording a podcast. And he said, oh, for what? And I said, oh, I'm starting a publishing house this year. And the co-founder and I are recording podcasts about different topics in publishing and book writing and all of this stuff. And he goes, what kind of books do you publish? And I was like, books that start with really good storytelling first, to fill a space in the market. I said, right now we're working on some fantasy books and a lit RPG. We ended up getting into a brief conversation about Dungeon Crawler Carl. He doesn't want to listen to the audiobook because it's owned by Audible, and he doesn't want to support Amazon. So he started getting into some anti-capitalist conversation. He was very polite. He didn't say anything at all that was mean or off-putting. It was just you could tell who he was pretty quickly. And so I am driving away and I think, okay, am I supporting, by publishing books like this, by writing books that are, in my opinion, based intentionally, am I hurting members of the LGBT community? Am I hurting people or setting them up to be, judged or treated differently or whatever? And so I started thinking about the implications of it. Am I doing a thing that is good? Because I don't think that we're doing a thing that is bad, but I just wanted to kind of process that in my head. And it led me into thinking about I don't think that guy should have to read my books or that he should have to read anything other than what he really wants to read. And I think that if he may be a person who wants to read all books that have LGBT themes throughout, he should be able to do that. No big deal. But what do you think?
I think that what we are trying to do is not abolish the other half of a political spectrum.
No.
But to create a space for the half that really doesn't have a space that we are trying to create right now.
Yes.
So there is definitely a space for conservative, Christian, typically more right-wing people. But it's just not making good art.
Yeah.
And there's good art coming out on the left, and there's obviously very bad art coming out on the left.
Yeah.
But people on the right side, and that's center right to far right.
Sure.
There's really nothing there that fits their values that is actually worth watching. I guess Taylor Sheridan.
Who is
that's
this?
Kind of
that name sounds familiar.
He does all the TV shows on Paramount Plus.
Okay, cool. Oh yeah, Landman and all that. Yeah.
What was the first one that everyone was obsessed
Yellowstone?
with? Yes.
Yeah, we're watching
parents
some of that.
Loved Yellowstone. And grandparents.
We're watching some of it, so I don't know what that says about my age, but that's fine.
You have kids. So
I do have kids. None of them have kids yet that I'm aware of. So
my parents loved it.
Nice.
But that's kind of the only thing I can think of that's really making quality art.
I feel very out in the middle of the ocean alone sometimes when I'm shopping for books or even for movies and stuff. And I mean, we've talked a little bit about the app I made. It's like literally to solve a problem I had because there's like certain things that I don't want to read. I actually had, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, so forgive me, but I had a situation where when I started doing book reviews on TikTok specifically, fewer people on Instagram seem to have a problem with it, but on TikTok, I used to have a slide. I still have the same one, but I took off one little comment. I had a slide that was defining like my degrees of LGBTQ plus representation in a book. And the only thing I changed, I didn't stop mentioning the amount of representation. I didn't change anything about it. But on the slide, there was a little disclaimer and it said that I don't tend to read books with heavy LGBTQ themes. That was all I said. I didn't say why. I didn't make any aspersions or like get into it at all. And I had 2 or 3 different times on 2 or 3 different reviews, I had just like a slew of people who were like, oh, so you hate trans people? Oh, so you want gay people to die? Oh, so you hate, and I was like, hold on. It just like started making me a little like crazy because I thought that's not what I said at all. Like I said, this is not something that I read all the time. And I thought, I mean, I grew up in a place that wasn't necessarily like a strong Christian environment. I grew up in the church, but like my community wasn't in the Bible Belt. Like we had some churches. A lot of the kids at my school didn't go to church. Like it wasn't a big deal. But even I grew up in I'm 38 now, but I grew up in a society where it was like understood that if I say that I'm a Christian person, if I go to church and I follow like basic Christian values, like I'm probably not the person that wants to read a book about 2 men falling in love. Like, or, bring it into more modern day. Like, I'm probably not the person who's like going to be super excited about like something that's pushing trans characters finding their identity. And it's like this beautiful story of their whatever. And that's not because I hate people that I identify as whatever or anything along those lines. It's just because like to me in my personal faith, like values, it would be wrong of me to like celebrate someone finding identity in something that's like against Christ and against God's will. And like, I'm not going to force anybody to like feel that way or think that way or see it that way or whatever, but it's just not something I want to read. And so it was just like, have you ever had people that just are so upset that you don't want to read? That's only one example, but it's the one that creates the most vitriol, I think. Smut being the second one. But have you ever had people respond negatively about that kind of stuff?
In the video I posted this past week that I collaborated with Lion on YouTube, the comments were overwhelmingly like, oh, they were just so upset. And I guess for anyone that doesn't follow us on social media, the post was about so much people will complain about, oh, there are always politics in books. Books are inherently political.
Books are inherently political it's a dog whistle.
It really
at this
is.
point. But
and I made this post about like, no one cares that like, no one's complaining about books having politics in them. Like having like Game of Thrones is all about politics. That's fine. No one's complaining about the existence of politics. It's when you are taking your real world politics and you're shoving them in my face as if they are the truth. And most of the time, they're actually objectively false.
Yeah.
The harder something is pushed, the more wrong it probably is.
Yeah, because I think that's part of the point of like why free speech is such a big deal. That like when all ideas are allowed to have a voice, like theoretically an equal voice to the number of people that want to voice them, the bad ideas kind of in a society where free speech is actually celebrated, the bad ideas fall away pretty easily and the good ideas tend to rise to the top because more people practice them. But that is not the case when you have a society where free speech isn't the same.
And really, we're at a place in American culture. There's a book called Disappearing Church by Mark Sayers.
Okay.
He's a pastor in Australia. He, I think he's in Melbourne. He and John Mark Comer had a podcast called This Cultural Moment where they both were pastors in extremely liberal areas. And they just talked about being a pastor in a post-Christian culture.
Yeah.
Right. And so post-Christian culture is obviously a culture that was Christian and has gotten away from that, which modern America, the whole Western world right now is post-Christian.
Sure.
And one thing they said in that book that really jumped out at me was in a post-Christian culture, politics becomes the new religion.
Ooh.
And it truly has hit that point. And on both sides of the spectrum, you have your far right MAGA Trump, which is weird because Trump is extremely centrist in his views. But
Let's not even get into that. People will hate you for saying just that.
The most liberal Republican president we've ever had.
Yeah.
But anyway, I can't say common sense. We'll get this podcast canceled. So on the left, it's very much a religion because they never really had religion.
Yeah.
And so that is why this free speech, freedom of religion. So when you push back against their political ideas, that would be like them pushing back against somebody practicing their religious beliefs. And it truly, whether they know it or not, that in their heart of hearts is how they are responding.
Yeah. Well, I think this week was a week, I don't even know what it's called, but JD Vance released a book. Have you seen all of the pushback for that? Mm-hmm. Barnes and Noble like has an end cap for it or like promoted it on their socials. I don't even remember what they did because I didn't care. I don't even know what it's called. I don't know that I'm going to buy it.
He's the sitting vice president. Why would Barnes and Noble not release
exactly.
Republican
it's like
or Democrat?
This president or this vice president was part of an
Kamala
elected
Harris
team.
couldn't put a sentence together and they should still put her book on an end cap.
Yeah, for sure. Her book, if she writes a book, it should be promoted because of the position that she held and like the importance in society.
If someone ghostwrites a book for her, then yes.
You are trying to get us canceled. But, oh my gosh, there were all these people that were like, oh my God, we're boycotting Barnes and Noble because they dared to promote a book by JD Vance. They are daring to promote something dangerous. And I'm like, so taken by the fact that like these people believe that. And you say it's their religion. And it's like that actually tracks a lot because it feels like, yeah, it's kind of religious. Like, because I think a lot of people, there's exceptions for sure of people that are like so pro-Trump that that's all they can like identify their own beliefs as.
I never met one.
I know like a couple of people that are that pro-Trump, like that would
I
like
have some Facebook friends.
Yeah. I don't know them closely, but like I feel like most people on the right in general, we've talked a lot about like the differences in values and stuff, but people that are more right leaning tend to have more broad strokes values. But I also feel like people on the right can more look at it and go, okay, like maybe Trump or Vance is supporting something Trump's doing that I don't love. It doesn't mean that I like want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say every one of his policies sucks. I mean, there were even a couple of things that I think during Biden's term, I was like, well, that's like probably okay. Like not every single thing that he did was like literally the end of the world, but that's how people act. People act like, you know, the things that the right do or the things that Donald Trump does or the things JD Vance is associated with are literally all world ending. Everything's the end of the world. All of the gay and trans people are going to be murdered. All of the women are going to lose their, like, we're going to live in the Handmaid's Tale, which don't even get me started. I know how you feel about that too. But it is crazy because I'm like, do you feel like there's any author that should their books be promoted at Barnes and Noble that would make you boycott Barnes and Noble?
If there was, Barnes and Noble already does it.
Do you still shop there?
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. I think that's part of the point I'm trying to get to is like, I go into bookstores all the time. I love shopping at Books A Million. I love shopping at Barnes and Noble. I love shopping at local bookstores. I've never been to a single one where I feel like I actually belong there. I feel like I kind of have to hide a little bit who I am. Whereas I don't see a problem with you being someone who leans left or liberal. First of all, I don't see a problem with you doing it because that is your choice as a free person to do. Second of all, if you want to own a business and lean left and vote for people who make your business cost more for you, that's up to you as well. And like, I don't want, if I ever owned a bookstore, I wouldn't want to make a place where like a trans person couldn't walk in the door and feel like they could look at books freely and be treated with respect. Like, that would never be part of what I would want to do. But I'm trying to remember. Well, I did find this place in Jonesboro recently near where we live that is not a bookstore exactly. It's more like an experience kind of thing. He's got like an escape room that he calls the escape chamber and space for events. And he made a comment actually when we went in last week about not putting every book by a local author that he features, because he does have a local author shelf, has to have content that like a kid could pick up the book. He was like trying to explain it. And he was like, if a kid picks it up, it's got to be like fine for them. And like, you could tell he was trying to stumble over what he was saying. Well, he heard like 20 minutes later that we were talking about going to church. And he was like, do you guys love Jesus? Like, are you Christians? And I was like, yeah. He was like, oh, thank God, what I was trying to say. And he like felt like he could safely explain it. And again, I'm not saying that people that have different identities or follow a different political spectrum or follow a different religion even should not be able to be in those spaces. I'm just saying it's odd to feel like the person that's like the odd man out in those spaces. And I think that's one of the problems we're trying to solve.
Yeah. And I don't think my book would be able to be on that shelf.
Really?
Yeah. And I think that's okay. Like, I wouldn't be offended by that. But like, I agree. Kids should not pick this book up.
Okay, so this leads me into a question of age appropriateness. I don't think that every book published should be on every shelf, especially when it comes to like libraries for children or whatever.
Yeah.
Does that mean that we could potentially be hurting the trans community or the gay community or the whatever? Like, is that a problem? Is that something that we're doing that could be harmful, or?
Depends on their goal.
Fair.
If their goal is truly to just live and not be bothered and live their truth, then not feeding that information to children is the children who, if they are naturally struggling with that, if that's actually a thing, they will seek it out.
True. And it's not as if they can't find information online.
Yeah. We live in the age of the internet. You don't need your book sitting on a shelf to push an ideological.
Yeah. How would you describe your opinion on like what's appropriate for a shelf in a kid's library versus what do you think should absolutely be allowed at Barnes & Noble?
Well, if we're looking at kids, like specifically young kids, I don't think there should be any kind of romantic content in books.
Okay. What about like, say we're talking about something like the Hunger Games for like a high school library.
Age. Yeah. I think violence and there's no sexual content in the Hunger Games, right? If I remember correctly.
I don't think.
Maybe kissing is.
Yeah,
really,
it can get a little bit steamy in the books, particularly at the beginning.
Read it since high school.
It's like when she and Peter are pretending in the first book, like during the games, that she describes it, but I wouldn't say it's inappropriate. Like I would still let like a 12 or 14-year-old probably read it.
I don't think violence and gore is as significant in books because you're not visually seeing it, unless you get into like mobster type of like.
Sure.
Like I don't. Even
There's some body horror stuff that.
Yeah, if they're curb stomping people, that might be a little different. But like normal violence, you just read that it happened. It's a different thing. But sexual content is going to be the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, really, that is the only major thing. I think some religious content, like teaching kids about Hinduism and Islam and Buddhism and things in books.
You think about what about Christianity? Like, should small children be able to be exposed to Christianity in books? At least through like, if we're talking about the context of like a school library situation.
Yeah, I think Christianity is inherently good, and it's where the entire moral compass of the Western world comes from. So whether you know it or not, you're teaching your kids scripture if you follow the moral compass of the Western world. Can
something, for instance, like in the context that we're talking about, can something be like LGBT and not sexual in nature? Because I do think that that was a question I got from someone when I first started doing reviews of books just myself online, was she was like, you're rating it, you know, the level of sex or smut or whatever. You're also rating LGBTQ representation. Are those two things related? And I was like, actually, no. Because like I have a book that's, that I reviewed that has like major LGBT representation, but the smut, I think my spice level was like, it was closed door because it was all off page, like things happen, and the actual sexual content happened between heterosexual couples. So for me, those things were like unrelated. I don't know that I would, it's hard. I don't read books with a lot of sexual content in the first place, but can you would you consider LGBT content of any kind to be sexual content because of like what it has to, like the natures that it refers to for, like if we're talking about with little kids?
Short answer, yes.
Okay.
Yes, because the entire concept of same-sex attraction is rooted in the depravity of sexual sin.
Sure.
So the attraction at all, acknowledging the attraction is at least a fruit of the downfall of the sexuality of the Western world.
Yeah. I mean, I would feel the same. I feel like it would also be inappropriate to have like a book about, I saw this in a video on X that I saw with a mom going to the school and was like, hello, this book was in the library. And there was, if I'm remembering correctly, and there was this whole like open spread, and they had to blur it out on the video of a child. It was a male child learning how to masturbate. And it was like in an elementary school library, and it wasn't like LGBT at all, but it was completely inappropriate sexually. And, but I do think that that's a good point. Like, okay, so you were at the coffee shop in the situation I was in. How do you deal with talking to people about like what Lion is doing, what we don't do, what we are focused on. Like we talk a lot about talking about in the positive, right? Like
Yes.
we want to talk about storytelling. We want to like get to the root of a good story and not focus on representation of any kind in our authors or characters or whatever. The point is not representation. The point is a good story, right? But there is like a big part of this that's like part of what we're doing is not publishing things that have become very mainstream, that we believe there's an audience that wants to not worry about those things in books. So how do you talk to people, like say the guy at the coffee shop? How would you like talk to him about it?
I think the way I would want to highlight it is talking about like that missing space that we are trying to fill.
Yeah.
And it's the best way I can word it is sin either does not exist or it's glorified. And I want there to be a space. And Brent Weeks is like probably the only author I have been able to read that is a follower of Christ that does it well, where it's like, hey, like homosexuality does exist, murder does exist, rape does exist.
Yeah.
It's not good,
Yeah.
but it's real. But you can be good despite it, and you can overcome it and fight against that. And I think that's we truly want to bring back the hero's journey of a good person in a depraved world.
That's true.
That's
I like
what
that
I
a
want
lot.
to teach kids to become. Like, I don't want it to be like, oh, we better hide you guys and we better home this and home that and make sure you never go out into the world. When John 17 is very specific, when Jesus tells his disciples, or he's praying to God about his disciples and says, give them the strength and send them out.
Yeah.
Like, I was hated first, prepare them to be hated too, but I don't want to hide them.
Yeah.
And that's how we need to be raising the next generation of the church. The generation's coming up now, and the one behind them needs to be like, hey, this world is extremely broken, but what's inside of you gets to overcome that.
Yeah. There is evil, but also there is good. And obviously good rooted in like the goodness of who God is and the salvation that we can find in Christ. And so, okay, you shared a post with me today, I think, or we saw the same post. I don't remember I think you shared it first, about Christian films, why Christian films are so bad. Did you read that?
You quoted it on Twitter and I saw it.
Oh, okay. My mom must have sent it to me because I was like, somebody sent it to me today. Did you read through it?
I read the first half and skimmed the second half, but
Okay. So this is like a discussion that's probably, I mean, we could probably do a whole podcast episode on it, but
we probably should.
But just like in a nutshell, what would you say to somebody that like hears us talking about this and goes, okay, great, start a Christian publishing house so you can be honest about what you're doing. Why don't you do that?
Because the adjective Christian in the arts department of the world has a bad name.
Yeah.
And to be tied to that would limit our audience.
I think
Because
so.
the stories we're making, if you are super left and super woke and pro LGBT and pro critical race theory, you could still pick up one of our books and enjoy it. It just doesn't include the things you like, but it's not pushing an agenda that's against you.
Yeah.
If you are a Christian, you will read my book and you will see the themes that are sprinkled throughout. If you are not, you won't notice them.
Yeah. I think that's the post was about like Christian movies suck partly because a group of people realized that they had to get like Hollywood's yes
Yeah, the
to
big
move
thing
forward.
he said in there was they suck on purpose.
They suck on purpose because if basically Hollywood could like ban or stop things because there aren't Christians with the type of money that a lot of people in Hollywood have to push something through regardless. There's a lot of people in Hollywood that would stop it if Christian films were able to be like truly good and truly like competitive in order to take box office money away and things like that. And it sucks because Christian books, I talked to somebody, I don't know, several months ago, and they talked about it's actually funny because it reminded me in the tweet, they talk about like the 35-year-old woman that like is really offended by everything, which is so funny because that doesn't sound like a Christian to me, but whatever. In the post today.
That's the wrong age, I think.
I know.
Anyway, it's more like a 55-year-old
if you think about that on the leftist side, that's like a
That's
whole
the age.
thing.
That's the correct age. there.
But Christian publishing, they have a little old lady test. Like their litmus test is the little old lady. If your grandma that sits in the front seat at church every Sunday would pick up the book and she would be offended by it, then you cannot publish that as a Christian fiction book, which is why so much of Christian fiction is like often historical fiction. It's very like honestly, it's like, it's too clean. I read a book. I'm not going to say the author. I'm not going to say the name of the book or the publishing house. I'm not even going to say the genre, but I read a Christian book in a genre that I enjoy last year from a publishing house that I was like, oh, maybe I'll love their stuff, because I thought, oh, this is like, they're doing what I wish, a lot more people would do. And I get into the book and I was like, oh, so you actually sacrificed the end of this story so that the character in the story could have a Jesus salvation arc in the last like hour of the audiobook. And I was like listening to it going, you actually took away from the story to shove something in and fit it in like modern Christianity, which it didn't make sense in the story. Like it was not fitted well to that. And I thought, oh, it's a little old lady test. It's like, she would have been upset if, oh, this is Christian. This is a Christian book. It's supposed to be a Christian book, but it doesn't have, I can imagine in my head, the little old lady getting upset about it. And I would agree. Like that's a big reason I didn't want to do Christian publishing. Because I don't like to read Christian fiction.
I will say I do struggle with like, and I think the best example is God's Not Dead.
Yeah.
I struggle with a screenwriter sitting down and writing God's lines for him. In something that's based in the real world. Now, when you do like fantasy, if we're going to go into like Narnia and Aslan is Jesus, and and I don't know why, maybe I'm biased, but like when it's set in the real world and you're like, well, then God told him this. And I'm like,
it just feels wrong. Like allegorically, when you're talking about fantasy and stuff, it feels like more reasonable, I think, to say Aslan as the Jesus figure is saying this thing. But when you put it in the real world, it feels like a little more heretical, honestly. Yeah. A little bit of that. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad we're not publishing Christian fiction, but it's funny because I felt like I understand why some of the labels in publishing exist the way that they do. Because when I was talking to that guy today, I thought, you know what would make this conversation simpler? Just being able to look at him and say, yeah, we're publishing Christian fiction. Like, because he would understand what that means, but it's not what I want to do. You mentioned that, I think Brent Weeks is like the person that you recognize that has a lot of those kinds of themes because he is a believer. I will say, I'm trying to get you to read The Will of the Many by James Islington.
I was gonna mention him as well.
I just reread The Will of the Many. I'm about to read the second one again. And I do think that he succeeded in a similar type of thing where it's like, there is no lack of evil or like bad things happening, but it doesn't feel like good and like truly good in a Christian worldview way. It doesn't feel like those things are like out of sight or impossible. It feels like that's like, it's just really cool. Like even the father-son relationships described in the books and like anyway, I've never read any of his other stuff. So I wonder.
I was gonna say, I do want to read the Lucanius trilogy.
Yeah. First. I have the first book on my shelf, which doesn't mean much.
I love those covers.
But they're really pretty. I really like them.
The Will and Many's gonna be a trilogy, right?
Okay. Yeah, the last one comes
Hierarchy,
out
right?
next year. Yeah.
Okay, so
The Justice of One is the last book's name. No cover yet, but Will of the Many, Strength of the Few, Justice of One. I'm like, that's deep. The labels help, but
they do.
But
I want to draw in because being in the editor in chief is my title at Lion, and so I want to draw in authors. And being Christian fiction, or even one of our original taglines of fiction by Christians, it limits us on who wants to send us books.
Yeah.
I want to get manuscripts from people who don't believe what I believe. I want to be challenged by people who are on all over the political spectrum.
There's commentators that I like watch, one of whom is like fairly moderate, and then the other one is like pretty right-leaning, but only recently. And like I would love to have them submit books to us, but neither of them are saved. Like the two people that come to mind immediately, neither of them are like Christians, like by their own admission. But I think that I heard one of them yesterday. Somebody was like, oh, are you an atheist? And he was like, no, of course not. And they were like, oh, are you a Christian? He's like, no, I don't want to like commit myself to it, but I do want to live in a Christian nation because I get that these values are the best way to have a world that like functions in the best way that is possible in a broken place. And I'm like, okay, that's deep. I wish you would love Jesus too, but that's a good start.
That is the most important thing. Obviously, the biggest pushback we are having is LGBT things. Like,
fair.
I was going to say anti-LGBT. That's why I hesitated there, but it's not anti.
Yeah.
I want books where things exist that I don't agree with, but they aren't like just shoving in my face like you have to agree with this or you're a bad person.
Right.
Because when you statistically look at it, the suicide rate of the LGBT community is insane,
Yeah.
especially post-op transgenders.
Yeah.
Last I looked, their suicide rate was over 50%.
Doesn't it get worse post-op, I think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Once they mutilate themselves, the suicide rate skyrockets.
Yeah.
And it's already the highest of any demographic in the country.
Yeah.
And anytime you bring that up, the first response is always, well, that's just because they are persecuted. It's like,
Yeah.
well, you also claim that the Black and Asian communities are the most persecuted groups in the country, and they have virtually no suicide.
Yeah. So you can't be right about both of those things at the same time.
No. And I can't hide the fact that I'm Black and Asian walking down the street, but you can hide the fact that you're gay walking down the street. So
Yeah,
it's clearly the persecution is going to be worse if you're wearing it on your skin.
Yeah.
And the highest suicide rate outside of LGBT is straight white men over 40, which apparently is not persecuted at all.
Right.
So either you have to acknowledge people you don't think are persecuted are, or persecution has nothing to do with suicide rate, and it's because mental illness is intrinsically tied to LGBT in a way that you cannot separate it.
Yeah.
I cannot support something. To support the LGBT community is to assist suicide.
Dang.
And so that is
heavy.
why in life it can exist, because murderers and rapists exist too, and Cubs fans exist, and I'm against that. So like things can exist.
And those things are not all on the same levels.
Well,
Obviously.
if you've been to Wrigley Field, you might understand.
Wow.
You got to go in a hazmat suit or you'll get hepatitis A, B, and C. But I want things that I don't agree with to exist.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to shove it in my face that I have to accept it as a good thing because
Yeah.
it makes people happy when clearly it doesn't.
Yeah. That's, I think, the most difficult part for me is like, I think that even when it comes, people get really pissed when you say like, oh, I'm not like, I don't like smut in books, right? We've talked about that. Like, oh, you're trying to stop me from being free to read porn. I don't know. People get really upset about that too. But I feel like there's less of like a moral pushback of like, when I say, I think that smut content in books is a bad thing that should not be in books for children. And when I say like, I personally don't think that I should read it, I don't think that other people who love Jesus should be reading smut, there is like less pushback. But if I say that I want a book that is free of LGBT content, you could find 100 people that would essentially accuse me of wanting to kill people, like actually murder them in the trans or, gay, lesbian, bisexual, whatever communities, which is so ridiculous. And obviously nothing is further from the truth. Like what you just said, it's like, you know, if you are willing to look at actual statistics, it kind of feels like if we support it, it's the thing that they're saying is happening because we're not. Anyway, It's hard just because I know I'm not ever unkind to people in front of me, or like I'm not even impolite. Like if I run into somebody that's obviously trans or whatever, I'm probably one of the people that, you know, trans people go home and post on Reddit, oh, I passed today. And it's like, no, I was just really nice to you because I'm a kind person, but it doesn't mean that I want to like glorify the lifestyle that you live. But it's complicated because I feel like there is this expectation of explaining myself in that specific issue. It's like people will let it go about smut pretty quickly. But like, if I say I don't want to read books with LGBT stuff, like it doesn't matter which social network I post it on. Like I will get people. I've only gotten like 2 people that actually gave me death threats that said something like die, burn in hell, et cetera, et cetera. But like a lot of people that essentially say like it's things that suggest that this is now defining of every part of my character, that I'm a horrible person, that I want trans people to die and all these things that are not true at all. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it is a complicated thing. And you know, I'm okay tackling a complicated thing. I think that's part of what we came to the conclusion of. And so, yeah.
I do want to highlight too that most of I actually can't think off the top of my head at all of a negative interaction I've had with an actual person that is LGBT.
Yeah.
It's always the allies that are the ones that are accusing you of being hateful most of the time. And I've seen, especially online, so many LGBT actual members that are like, hey, like when someone, even though I don't believe in Jesus, like, when people minister to me, I feel good because I know that to them, like they care enough about me that they want me to not go to hell. Like most people that are actually struggling with the sin themselves are perfectly nice people. There are obviously some lies they're believing that I think, but they're not hateful most of the time at all. But those white liberal women, they are hateful.
Yeah. It's so funny. I used to wear my rainbow glasses all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't wear them anymore. I love a rainbow. Rainbow's been my favorite color since I was a child. That's what I always used to say. And I used to like wear them.
Were you informed that it's not a color?
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, I don't wear them a lot anymore. And I think it's because it's so interesting because at one point I wore them because I just enjoyed them. And that's why I want to be wearing anything, is because I enjoy putting it on, you know. And for a little while, I wore them because I was like, well, I work in an incredibly liberal industry. And so maybe people will just make their assumptions about me if I have these in my profile picture and I can fit in, which was not a great reason. And now I don't wear them because I'm afraid that someone will think like, oh, she's like an ally or whatever, because I have come to find that a lot of people who, you know, identify themselves that way, like maybe they're hetero and whatever other words are used to describe us, but like they're so cruel. Like
I have seen that happen to you.
So cruel.
So the bottom line of the podcast is that we are not trying to eradicate a people group.
No.
We want everything to exist within the parameters of the book industry. We want to create a space for people that are like-minded with us.
Yeah.
And the bottom line of the goal of everything we do is that we want more people to see Jesus.
I can live with that. Actually, I love that. Not just live with it. It's pretty awesome. It's so funny. I don't see us as a Christian company in what we produce, but I do think that I do see us as like a company that can't divorce our faith from our mission. Like, despite the fact that we don't publish Christian books, or we won't publish things that are like Christian in the way that people like expect them to be in entertainment. Like, yeah, I don't think that there's a way that I could or would want to divorce the idea of our faith from all the stuff that we do. So agreed.
Well, that does it for us today. If you are not following us on socials, you can go to lionpublish.com, find all of our social handles there. And if you're listening to this in summer 2026 or later, you can find our backer kit for our first 3 pre-launch books.
Woo!
And that is all we have.
Awesome. It was great to chat, Seth.
It was.